Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Phi and this is Money Philosophy. Thank you for coming back for another day of Tesla analysis. Today we will continue to take a look at short-term price targets for Tesla by looking at technical analysis. We will also talk about what to expect in the next few weeks leading into earnings result. And there are some rumors around a potential earlier shareholders meeting this year. So we will go over that as well. This week in particular, there are a lot of influencers and YouTubers gathering in Austin for the Tesla Cyber Rodeo event, as well as a Tesla Con event that is organized by the Tesla Owners Club of Austin. So I will be going to this particular event and hopefully I will have some information to report back. But if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I am a growth stock investor and a trader, and I'd love to share with you my investing and trading journeys. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So let's start with the daily chart for Tesla. The volume for today was 114%, so it was significant. The volume for the last few days have been consistently at or above 100%. Note that out of the last 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, only Monday was predominantly buy volume. Tuesday, yesterday, and today, Wednesday, volumes predominantly sell volume. So of course, as a result, the price action has been moving down a little bit here. At the low of the day today, Tesla reached approximately $1,028, give or take. That leaves us with about $18 at the bottom for the gap to fill. We expect Tesla to fill the gap at $1,010 before tipping back up. So that is my game plan, and that's what I'm hoping for, or at least looking out for. Of course, there's no guarantee that Tesla will stop at $1,010. The next support is $986, but my hope is that Tesla would bounce hard at $1,010, and potentially with the upcoming events for Tesla Giga Texas, the Cyber Rodeo, it could potentially have some new announcement, some PR effect with a delivery of a couple of Model Ys made out of 4680 battery cells out of Giga Austin, and that could potentially boost the stock higher. But for now, based off of technical analysis, I do think that Tesla has a little bit more to go on the downside before bouncing. The RSI has not reached oversold yet, so it does confirm that there's a little bit more room to go. Let's take a look at the hourly chart. So on the hourly chart here, as we can see that Tesla hover right below the bottom pivot points today, and it crossed into the bull flag. The body of the flag, the upper end of the flag was 1039. And then it's almost reaching the bottom of the gap here at $1,010. And it could not make it back up to above this pivot point here. It spiked, looks like first thing in the morning, and that was about it. Tomorrow, the pivot points are on the upper end, 1072. The middle pivot point is 1051, and the bottom pivot point is $1,000, which happens to be right below the gap here. So I do expect Tesla would hit the bottom of the gap, or potentially the bottom pivot, and possibly even at 986. At 986, I would probably add a lot more shares, but I would start contemplating either short-term call options or share at $1,010. But those are the three watch points: $1,010, bottom of the gap, $1,000 bottom pivot point, and $986 for the support point here. Of course, we should also plan on the upside, right? So if Tesla opens the day right around $1,040, which is give or take where it end the day today, chances are it could spike a little bit up to this pivot point of 1,049. 1,063 would be the upper end of the gap. But that's probably as far as it's going to go, right? The upside is very limited compared to the downside. So keep that in the back of your mind. I expect Tesla either start flat or with a gap down, bounce a little bit, and then move right back down. Assuming macros and the rest of the markets are also red, based on my reading right now, it does look like another red day tomorrow, but things could change overnight. Let's also take a look at the weekly chart. So on the weekly, this is definitely not good from the weekly chart standpoint. This is bearish engulfing. Even though we're only going to 3 days in the week, we still have 2 more days. Unless Tesla get back to somewhere above 1100 by the end of the week, otherwise this is a bearish engulfing, regardless where it ends. If it ends below 1105, that is bearish engulfing. And if it does not fill the gap this week, then I expect it will fill the gap next week. But if it ends the week like this with an RSI not yet at oversold, there might be potentially more downside next week. Now, let's take a look at the calendar and see what the possibilities are for now. Now, with the April calendar here, tomorrow would be the 7th of April, Thursday. We know that we are expecting financial results for Q1 of 2022 to be released on the 20th of April. So that gave us about roughly 2 weeks. And Tesla would likely announce the date for the shareholders annual event, hopefully right around April 20th as well, in conjunction with the financial earnings call. And a lot of people project that a shareholder annual meeting date to be June 7th. Historically, over the last 2 years, it has been in the fall, and a few years before that, it has been in the summertime. So June 6th, sort of depending on June 6th, sort of not out of the norm. It's just out of the norm for the last 2 years, which are the pandemic years. So I'm not overly surprised if it's going to be in June 7th of this year. And in that meeting, Elon and the rest of the Tesla board would be soliciting approval from shareholders to authorize more shares, which paved the way for a stock split. That doesn't necessarily mean that a stock split will be announced, but if the shareholders authorize for more shares, then Tesla and the board can decide whether or not to have a stock split, which probably going to happen sequentially and shortly after that. So I do think that within the year of 2022, we will see another stock split in Tesla, which is a great catalyst for the stock to spike higher. From now until June 7th, whenever the shareholders approve the stock split, I do think that there's a lot of opportunity to buy, because if history tells us anything, it tells us that leading into the split news, immediately after the split news, and up until the effective date of the split, Tesla consistently moving up. So that's definitely something that we all need to pay attention to as long-term shareholders, and particularly as swing traders. That will be an excellent opportunity to capitalize on a big run leading up to that. But back to a much shorter term analysis here, we have about 2 weeks for the stock to potentially run leading up to earnings. If Tesla is going to be bearish for the last 2 days of this week, which would be the 7th and the 8th, then it possibly could flag a reversal on Friday and potentially jump next week, the week of the 11th. Of course, there's no guarantee for that. This is a hypothesis, right? If it does run on the 11th, it could potentially lead up to even the 18th or the 19th of the run. But this doesn't happen if macros don't cooperate, right? So if macro continue to be red for the good chunk of next week, then we might be looking at a run toward the back half of next week. And even the entire week next week, it might be red days, right? So I really look at the 18th and 19th to be bullish days leading into earnings. And although I'm hopeful that it will start turning starting next week, but we don't know about next week until we see the conclusion of this week, which depends largely on the price action on Friday. So from a technical standpoint, the bull flag looks to be somewhat broken with these 2 red days, but it is not fallen out of the bull flag parameters. For Tesla to bull flag to be canceled, it need to fall below 941. So technically the bull flag is still intact, just doesn't look great. It had a great breakout on Monday, and it could have continued higher. And if that's the case, it could easily hit the second price target. And that's usually how bull flag works. But with this particular incident, Tesla's moving down for the last 2 days and potentially a couple more days. The silver lining, however, is that there is a gap created from 1089 down to 1076. So even though it's not a big gap, it just means that with a gap down like this, Tesla will fill this gap on the way up. So that is something to watch out for. I think that if Tesla fills the gap at $1,010, it could spike and then go back up and fill this gap. So that I'm thinking the next couple of days is going to be red, stopping right around the $1,000 mark here, and then spike back up. The first thing it needs to hit back up is 1105. That could happen next week, and maybe leading up to earnings, optimistically, it could get back to all-time high of 1243. So let's break that down, right? The series of events should be as follows. You have April 20th for the announcement of earnings results and potentially the announcement of the annual shareholders meeting date. And if that annual meeting date happens to be on June 7th, as some of the influencers and Twitters have tweeted out over the last few days, then June 7th going to be another time frame. And then on June 7th, shareholders will most likely approve the authorization of additional shares, which means that Tesla now has a which means that Tesla now has a green light to announce any stock split. And then at some point subsequent to June 6th, it will announce the stock split. And then at some point subsequent to that, the actual split will occur. So we have 4 different timelines to look forward to. April 20th, hypothetically June 7th, and then pick a day after that, and then another day after that for the actual split, right? So with 4 timelines that potentially could be catalysts for Tesla stock to spike higher. And I think the single announcement of the shareholders annual meeting date of June 7th or whatever date that is, the closer the better, will be a catalyst for the stock to spike higher, because the expectation is that the shareholders will approve the additional shares, and stock split, it's just a matter of time after that, right? So those are the key events. Even we know what's going to happen. When it does happen, it usually has an effect on the stock. I'm not really trading Tesla because the downside is a little bit more, and if not played carefully, we can get hurt. I'm more waiting for an oversold condition and going back and onto the upside, because I do think the downside is temporary and the upside is going to happen. It's just a matter of a couple more days or a couple more weeks, right? It eventually will happen, and the more it falls down to the downside, the better off it is for shareholders, because every time it moves down, it's only going to move back up at a higher price, right? And so the next wave is going to be here soon enough, and we're going to see 1,300, 1,400, and 1,500 soon enough. So treat this as an opportunity to buy more shares and or accumulate more leap call option, but not right now. At this moment, I do think there's a little bit more downside to go. So I would hold off on any leap call options. If you buy shares, I would gradually ease it in, and at some point when we hit a certain oversold condition, whether it's 1,000 or 986, we will be able to go back in, and I'll definitely talk to you guys before then. So this is it for this video. Thank you very much for paying attention thus far. I hope you find the information helpful and that you'll come back for another video. Until then, bye.